calling the meeting to order at 3:35. As to the agenda, I would like to suggest, given that I realized only this week came up that in the last 48 hours that we need to get our annual report out, that I want to amend the agenda to add reviewing a draft of the annual report. So anybody else have any other agenda changes? Hearing none, I move that we amend the agenda to include the reviewing an annual report. I have a second.
Second.
Okay. Any discussion? Michael, aye. Andy?
Aye.
Tom?
Aye.
Fred?
Aye.
Okay. And what we need is a minutes taker.
I hate to say it, but I think it's my turn.
Okay. So we got 4-0.
Give me just a second to get that going.
Sure. Okay, I'll give you a minute to add annual plan, annual report. Okay. Moving on to our perfunctory stuff. There we go. Okay, people see an annual report here?
Indeed.
Annual report minutes.
Minutes.
Minutes. I don't know how many people got to review Tom's minutes. Thank you, Tom. We can, I did a few quick things here. Does anybody, I guess I'll leave it to you, Fred and Andy, to say that you're through with this page.
Michael, can I just add or just,
And you could still do edits, yes.
I'm just curious, as I put up, we're cut and pasted from your agenda.
Well, you mean you don't like the fact that I added promoting? I mean, not they added your comment.
It's not a big deal. I just wanted to point it out.
Well, I guess I felt that makes
You
the
wanted
topic,
to approve upon your agenda.
well, yes, plus I wanted to, the agenda is not the whole all and be all, and I think it makes it clearer to people what the topic was about.
That's fine. I just wanted to point it
Yeah,
out.
no, I guess I don't take the agenda items as
Some
well.
committees are sensitive to things like that.
Oh, okay. I don't know. I didn't realize whether that
Yeah.
I could change it back if people
The
feel
agenda.
otherwise. Maybe I'm being too loose with this. Let me know if others feel similar.
I can go either way.
Any comments on this page here?
Muted, sorry. I'm done with the page.
Fred?
Set. Read it earlier. I was happy with it.
Okay.
Just trying to catch up here.
Okay, fine. Here's the second. I guess it's up to you, Andy. Tell me when you're finished.
The second page? Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I read these before. I'm good with them.
Yeah, I read them before as well. I just wanted to look at them again. I'm good.
I'm good. I'm good.
Fine. I move that we accept the minutes as edited for, when is this thing? January 13th, January 13th, 2022. Did I hear a second from somebody?
Second.
Okay.
I beat Tom that time.
Woo-hoo. Okay.
I was abstaining.
Aha.
Okay, I can pick and choose by, I don't know if I can mute anybody anyway. Michael, I, Tom,
I,
Andy,
Aye.
Fred.
Aye.
Okay, 4-0. Approved. Okay. We're mostly up to date, except for, as I was told recently, that I think there's some minutes back from 2019 that might be missing. And there's sort of be one little gap part there. I'll save. Okay, I'm gonna stop sharing here. Oh, that's over there. Okay. In terms of things, let's see, Brad's coming on soonish. And maybe Frank, I can't remember if he also has it, whether to move on to I guess we have to get through the let's see, where is this plan? Draft. Should we, what do you think? Should we move on to the annual report? Is as good an item as next of the things we got to touch upon here today. Okay, folks can read this. I know that some folks already, I haven't read it. How many folks have actually, I guess, Tom, I think you put in some suggestions here.
Yeah, I read it. I didn't comment. And I thought it was very good.
Agreed.
Okay. What's that?
I said, I agree. I read it a couple of times and it's very nice.
It is
Okay.
good.
It's good to see.
I guess-
Michael,
Yeah.
just on Tom's comment up above on spelling out CCA, I think instead of spelling it out, it could just be deleted because it's spelled out already. All we really need is that it's awaiting approval from DPU.
Right.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yes.
Where,
Um,
oh, right there. I mean, the best way of doing that is to put it in quotes like you did, like right after community choice aggregation. Like
I
you
was
did
just going to
for
put
the-
its approval.
Oh, okay, got it. Just take it out. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
perfect, yeah.
I guess what I would say to save some time is, I guess, right, I can't tell if there was some issue about some cost stuff to put in or not, or savings. Okay, there are some edits to be done here on savings. I guess if
That first blank, it was estimated to save a roughly 8,000 a year.
this is from the original thing there as opposed to anything we've redone.
This is
since.
from the Fred Davis analysis that we submitted for the grant.
Okay, I guess we should go look at, I guess as I emailed you earlier, we should actually go look at the bills these days and see what this really.
But of course, we won't have the bills for the year, and we won't even have the bill for December. We really.
We haven't gotten the bill with,
The installation wasn't completed until the end of December, so we need to go all the way through January before we see it really any valid comparison.
okay, yeah, I'm just want to make sure in the, let's see,
It already says the estimated electrical.
yeah, I see
consumption,
that, yeah,
So we don't need about.
what I would like to suggest is if I can, if you don't mind, that we could approve this. I was gonna make a well, I'll make the motion. I guess I was gonna make the motion that I could make some minor edits after this and finalizing it as part of a motion that we approve them, the thing there. I guess I just haven't read it at all, but I don't know whether I should just, whether that is appropriate for me.
Go with it.
What?
Yeah, that's.
I'd say
that-
go with it,
Yes.
Michael.
Yep. Okay. I should go with the flow, let go of my control.
No, no,
thing.
no, no. Why don't we move to approve it with the fact that you are authorized to make some minor changes as you see fit.
Yeah,
Okay.
final edition.
Okay,
Yeah,
then
that's
you made the
fine.
motion. I second it. Or somebody else.
I'll second it.
Okay, fine. Any discussion? Okay, Michael, I, Tom, Andy,
Aye,
Fred.
Aye.
Okay, so we got an annual report. Thank you, Gino and Dorothea.
Yes, thank you very much.
Very good.
Excellent.
Okay. Deal with this later here. Actually, let me
And
stop.
it's not due for a week.
Oh, really?
Thank you.
Okay, good. But at
Yeah.
least we get it in on time since that'll be before our next. Finally save this as here so I don't lose it.
Did you look over all changes?
What's that?
Did you look over all changes? There was like this COVID phenomenon.
Yeah, I'm gonna look, as part of that permission to review it all, I'll fill in
Okay,
any blanks.
Gotcha.
Oh, I had that comment
think it's-
about the green communities.
Yeah, and I'll consult with
Excellent.
people as needed, as you guys, so that we get it straight. Okay. Okay, we got that done there. And you guys can make sure I actually do that. Okay, then, I see Brad has showed up at some point.
I've got it in the notes. I saw him come in.
Okay, and I assume we don't have, okay, so no Frank yet. Okay. Hi, Brad. Let's go, do we want to talk about the warrant article? Does that seem, we can do a little, I'm not sure how much. I guess I'll bring it up. I guess that there was that we're going to meet with them. It looks like, I know a number of people replied that we're going to meet with the student advocates as they work on their presentation and get more feedback. They're meeting with the Dover, preliminary meetings with the Dover warrant group there next week, and as well as their advisor at school next week. And so they're working on their presentation and whether we have a formal committee meeting with them and what support we can give, and our vote on February 7th at 5 p.m. I can't remember who has replied. There was some flexibility as to the time, as to that particular time on that day. So I can do it that time. I don't know what Tom, Andy, Frank.
I'm good.
Fred. What? You're good.
yeah, and the date again was what?
February 7th, Monday at 5 o'clock.
Yeah, I'm good.
We
I'm
can
good
put
for
the
that.
time. Fred,
Yep, I'm
Brad?
good for that.
Yeah, I was good with that last night when we talked about it.
I can't
Yep.
tell what you said, Fred, Brad. I did-
Oh, Brad, sorry. Did that again, didn't I?
I think I'm good.
Okay, fine. It's all four-letter words. Okay, so hopefully it works. I can't remember how Frank does, but it's hard enough to get these things. I hope he could do it, but are people willing to do it a little earlier at, does anybody have problems with 4 o'clock or 6 o'clock? If it makes it work better for,
I'd prefer the 4 or 5. I could do the 6, but I prefer the earlier two.
Yeah, I'm good with that as well.
Fred?
Six,
What?
sorry.
Well,
Fred?
you can go now, Brad.
Six actually works better for me. But I could probably find coverage to make 5 work.
Okay, and Fred, well, you're flexible time-wise?
I'm pretty flexible. What date are we talking about again? I'm sorry, but
February 7th, Monday.
yes, I've got that all set. I have a 5 PM, but I can do 6.
Okay, fine. We'll see how it all, we'll see how it goes. And hopefully, I guess for Dorothea in particular, those times work for you. Okay, so we've got that. We can talk about it more then. I do want to bring up, I'd like to bring up one issue now to see how we want to phrase it. I'm going to share the screen with okay, people can see it here. I sent you this. This is my sort of rough, some markup of this thing here that I sent as comments as an individual to the students, as well as all of you. The general issue that I wanted to bring up here is that in terms of the meat of this thing at the bottom, where they have resolved here, that what I have on the screen in the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 points. One issue is to what extent that when we meet with them and even for our own presentation about supporting this, which I envision we will support maybe with our own spin on it. That, or I don't know if it's going to come down to really wanting any real word changes, but it comes down to we've been doing some of this, and to what extent I would say we would like the promoters of this warrant article to, in their even presentation, possibly, or our own presentation, acknowledge the fact that that some of these things here is what we're working on. They're asking this to do, and whether we want to clarify the role of us as a committee, as well as, and whether the sustainability coordinators want to make clear what's been done or what they're working on and would be working on. It's between this town meeting and the next, it's sort of both what's been done up to this town meeting and then what's going to be done in the next town meeting, no matter what. And how this helps. So I somehow I feel like this, it's not like this is something that's just out of the blue. We've been doing this stuff. And I feel like I need to find a way to do that.
I think we talked to the students about putting in a slide to that effect in their presentation. If I remember correctly.
I don't quite, I think there was some of that, but it wasn't quite, I don't think it was that explicit about defining against what they're looking for, to sort of talk about the roles of what, because it's come up for the Dover, the similar article in Dover that somebody from the advisory group there brought up, okay, so what does this really mean for staffing and what people in town will do? But in our case, it's a much different implication here, because if the first one is, I mean, it'd be nice to have the town administrator. That's well, I mean, that's an overall thing there that is a little bit different. I'm sure that appropriate. I mean, point number 2 is something that we would be part of, even a climate action plan work that we would be doing, is trying to figure out what it is that we could do on this sort of sequestration side and things like that. 3 is a lot of what we're working on, and Dorothy is doing a lot of work on. I mean, basically Gino's doing a lot of work on the town side operations. Dorothy is doing a lot of work on the residential side. And we're sort of doing a mix of things already. And so somehow I feel like we need to come up maybe with our own presentation that we could even, whether we want to do our own presentation of this, about this, that identifies what it is we see our roles, and we could do it jointly with the coordinators. I guess I'm maybe, and even on the last, to generate the inventory and the climate action plan, we comment on what's done and be doing. And then the last thing is still what we're working on too.
I'd like to throw something in there that one of the things that at least I know Joanne's been talking about, and she's been working with these students, is that it really needs to look totally like their thing. So I think too many adults getting involved and putting in their 2 bits. I don't know if I support that idea.
Well, I think I guess it's less that I need to get them to do it, but I want to see, I think as a committee and coordinators, we want to do it. That is part of our, whether we support this thing, I think we have to be able to articulate what it is that we've done and what we plan to do.
And if I could add to that, in support of what Michael is saying, Fred, I'm totally behind what the students, I think what their ultimate goals are. But as Michael has already stated, there's committees working on these very issues. Two is the Open Space Committee, the Planning Board, the Conservation Commission. There's already ongoing activities. And I think it's going to be confusing, particularly to our newer residents that maybe aren't familiar with some of those boards. And it may be very confusing to advisory and planning board who know about those boards to try to figure out what the students are really asking for.
And I think it might seem, right,
They're-
it might seem a little
they're-
embarrassing.
The
that-
students are new to our towns and boards, this is their first engagement and it's fantastic, but how do we educate them in what is already exists that they might leverage?
I don't want us to seem out of coordination with them.
Correct. Yeah, I wish they had come to us 6 months ago. But we are where we are.
Mhm.
So what others think?
I have a question which is more procedural. When do the students, if they wanted to, still can change this text before they present it to the select board? And I think, Fred, you talked to Jeannie.
Yes, hang on, sorry, I've got to get rid of this thing in the background here. I don't think I want to talk to Wayne, Oklahoma. These landlines are crazy. Yes, Joanne talked to Jeannie, and the warrant article can be changed, but it has to be changed by advisory saying we agree to this change for it. So it can't just be that they resubmit it with different wording, that it actually has to go through advisory, and advisory has to approve any wording changes.
Mhm. I'm just saying, I talked to the town clerk, and what I heard was this text cannot be changed at all because it's a citizen petition.
Or can the citizen, she said the citizens themselves can't even do it?
No, once it's submitted, that's that.
Not, well, okay, we need to double check that because we clearly heard that it cannot be changed by the students or by the citizens who
Mhm.
put in the petition, but they could during their meeting with advisory say, we would like to make these changes. Will you approve them?
Okay.
We
Do
could
they
also
have-
make changes at town meeting. You can.
Yes,
you
that's
can
true,
have
too.
all sorts of things that are that you put together and have agreement with everybody and then formally do it at town meeting.
Mhm.
Can you replace the whole document with a completely different or edited document, or are you adding amendments, or what are you doing at that point?
Imagine you go that far. I don't know, Gino, have you ever seen it go that far? It's generally little parts that.
Yeah, it's usually wording changes, not replacements of the whole thing. And yeah, to do it at town meeting, it needs to be a proposed amendment in writing submitted to the moderator. And, you know, in either flyers need to be handed out, or more likely and more easily put it up on the screen, have a slide of what the new wording would be.
Mhm.
And as for modifying it during the process, town boards, I think there's a little more flexibility for town boards in making wording changes versus a citizen's petition, because it's kind of set in stone. When 10 people sign, or 10 or more people sign, it's set in stone. And I think it could be changed if the select board reopens the warrant and agrees to the change. But technically, once it's submitted by the deadline, that's it until town meeting.
Well, yeah, I'm less worried about the wording issues than, I mean, maybe there's a little wordsmithing and things, but what I'm just trying to get at is whether even, yeah, I guess I'm still coming back to what it is that issue of being clear about. I think it's in the interest of the whole group here, the committee and the sustainability coordinators, to make sure it's clear about what's being done by the group of us that sort of supports this and where this thing helps promote these activities. And that's something that maybe could just be, I guess, your thing, Fred, of whether we can do that as our own piece, and whether that in a way that does not detract from the student effort, but also shows that there's coordination with the student effort, or that the students have some awareness of what it is. I think it's more important that they don't look like they're doing something in the abstract that didn't fully, without fully appreciating what's going on anyway, and what will happen no matter what.
So my opinion on this, and I'm sorry that I missed the meeting yesterday, is that it's almost kind of marketing too. And, you know, and please correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm kind of interpreting this almost as kind of a first step. And I'm assuming that, you know, it kind of lays some groundwork and expectation that we can then follow up with either, you know, ourselves or other town members or students with additional warrant articles that can really start to dig into specific actions and requirements to, you know, enact them. Because, you know, hearing others' interpretations of this when we last met was that there's not a lot of teeth to this, but, you know, it's a first step. And so is there a worry that maybe if this isn't fine-tuned enough, that we would then potentially kind of lose some opportunity or momentum to, I don't know, put forth additional specific initiatives via this mechanism?
I don't think so. I don't think this thing limits us in any way. It's basically, it recommends a set of actions that don't preclude doing whatever other actions might not be here. So therefore, I don't see it bounding in any way, as opposed to just sort of a more of a public statement that, yes, this is an important issue and we should all get on, get a little more coordinated on doing something about it. Therefore, I don't want to get too hung up on the wording, even though you could use some, as I did some wordsmithing here, just for partially, as I tried to make it clear to them. It's not like they have to change the wording. It's just so that when people start saying, what does this really mean? I'm trying to get at, okay, is this what you really meant? Like on the third bullet, it's an issue of even the whole idea of whether you're talking about town municipal as well as all the residents. There's a comment there that you don't see. I guess I can just for their own. There's a comment that I made here, whether addressing both municipal operations and energy use by our residents, so that they're clear in their own heads what they meant by town's greenhouse gas emissions in their own presentation. But I don't think anything here on others could see what they say bounds us in any way, other than it just sort of tries to get a little more of public agreement and visibility and debate.
Yeah, I kind of had that interpretation again, and to me, it's kind of marketing, and it's a springboard for additional initiatives and to lend more credit to, you know, what we do, and yeah, hoping to, you know, garner additional members and you know, just other interested parties.
Who knows if a future one makes an obligation? Like we all say that we really have to reach. I don't know, we can't obligate residents, but whether you just say, okay, the town really does have to cut its own emissions, the municipal emissions by 50% by 2030, here's a plan, and they have to do it. Right now, it's a suggestion. I can see in the future whether this sort of opens the door to the select board being able to be given the guidance to approve something like that, or whether, but yeah. I don't want to repeat myself. I guess for me, it's still a matter of whether, how we, I mean, we can listen to what they want to say. We've given, some people have given some feedback. Others can still, who weren't at, anybody who wasn't at this sort of informal meeting yesterday, are more than welcome to give some comments and thoughts, but right, it's their work. And I was looking for a little clarity on some ideas as well as things they can look into. But for us, I guess I'll still come back to what we want to do.
Can I ask to add to that, Michael, how did the informal meeting with the students go?
Fine, they were open to comments. They showed some presentation material that we gave some comments on that they're cleaning up with some other people, before they show it to the committee. But there was discussion about, I mean, they were open to whatever feedback that they could, that we gave them, but they have to make their own decisions about their presentation slides, how much, I mean, there's issues about how much do you educate the public about climate change, that our temperature is really rising do you want to spend time on whether it's human based or defining that it's an issue for sure, and how much do you try to make it locally tied into like flooding issues here, or so it was just some comments on their first cut presentation about that, but it basically revolved around just wanting the town to do more and support it. But you'll see it more in their.
See it on February.
Mike, we
7th.
can ask them we can ask them maybe something, Dorothy, if you're in touch with them, to see before they even have the meeting. with us on the 7th, whether they're willing to share with us the presentation beforehand.
I'm taking a note
In
of that.
fact, is that normally done for those advisory and select board hearings? Do you have to provide those boards ahead of time? Or
Oh, yeah, that's true.
or can you
Often, I think you generally want it because as part of that, you have to sign up with a meeting page summarizing what you're going to do and give any presentation material. So they tend to want it anyway. I think that's what we've done with our stuff.
Just thinking from my student days, we were always doing all-nighters, so I wonder if you can remind them that you got to get the materials in ahead of time.
Yeah, okay.
Any
We'll see if they can do it by the 7th.
Mhm.
And that's just their whatever version they have there.
Mhm.
But,
So
yeah,
do you think maybe then the presentation is the area in which we can kind of provide the most helpful edits, given that it seems like there's some kind of procedural issues with adjusting this document? And while, I'm sure you make a lot of great points, Michael, as I'm reading through these comments, and I think it's great food for thought for the students. But maybe, we can, with proposed edits, they can be directed more towards their slides.
I agree. Yeah, definitely. I don't think that's definitely going to happen. And so we see it. I just want to come back to whether what we do as a group. I mean, how we do it as a group of the committee, again, whether we do a joint thing here with you, Gino and Dorothea, and the committee about how we see our agenda over the next year or two fitting in with this and where this would help and whether we want to, and that's the basis of our own presentation, which I think doing that, figuring that out sooner than later, if we all agree on that, and doing a draft of that sooner than later and sharing it with them would help them better understand where we are, and they can better reflect that in their own thinking, to the extent that they're going to be questioned about, okay, what does it mean to do this stuff here? Who's going to do it?
And I can anticipate a question from either advisory or the select board. Students, if this passes or it doesn't pass, what would be the impact? What would be the major impact to our town sustainability committees and initiatives? Where would it help? Where would it have any impact?
Right.
The other question that we did talk to them about is that clearly, at least advisory, but probably the select board as well, will say, well, wait a minute, what is this going to cost the town?
That's another question you can expect.
Well, we advise them that you can't answer that question at this point because the climate action plan hasn't been created. We don't know, what the policies will be that are brought in through the different offices, etc. So we actually said to them, be careful to not try and answer that question too explicitly.
Plus, we want to say, I mean, to the extent that that Gino and Dorothea are going before committees for the sustainability coordinator stuff, that in essence, part of it is saying that a bunch of this is going to be done. It is ongoing and work on this will continue. A lot of this so that's where I want to, I think we need to be clear so that it's not like people are going to raise those questions, because to the extent approving the sustainability coordinator budget means doing a lot of work on these things.
True.
And I just want to figure out how we write that up. And I think it's a little bit more That's why I guess I'm suggesting to whether Dorothea and Gino that whether again, we just sort of do a joint product of where we think, how we think that some of these things will go on and where I guess the question is, where does this thing help? What does this mean beyond? Do we say that all this is happening anyway?
And why,
Right.
and why bother having a declaration?
Well, I think that there are things that this thing promotes. I just want to go through it. I don't know whether to suggest that we go through each bullet and say, what would happen? What are we going to be doing anyway? By whom? And what and how this thing helps? Is that a fruitful discussion to have now?
I think just like Brad and others have said, it's more of a PR thing to get the residents knowledgeable that these things, it's great to present this, and then for us to be able to say, oh yeah, we've done this, and that, and next year we're planning to do these 3 things or whatever, however many things. But it just builds support for it, builds awareness of it. I think that's all positive.
I mean, is that the main, right? Is that the main positive thing of coming out of this? Why do we want the town to vote yes on this? Is because it gives broader mandate and support for the activities that we're all doing.
Exactly.
And and that it might be a little bit more of a signal, like the first one is a little bit more, I guess it gives a little bit more push. If I look, I still want to bullet by bullet. The first one, I think, does a little bit more, puts a little bit more on the town to do more in terms of communication. And we could say that, yes, the coordinators are there to, and the committee is there to support the town administrator in doing more work on this. But it's not like it's it's a great burden on the town administrator. It just gives it a little more thrust, and we're there to support this.
And when it does, sorry.
Go.
Oh, and when it does come time to, propose things like more rigorous building codes, I think this again lends some credibility to that, to those later proposals. You can kind of reference back to this and be like, this is one of the aims that, was approved. And so now it's time to kind of, bring that to fruition.
Right. Except for building codes, unfortunately, if I understand it right, if we do an optional one, we have to go to town meeting no matter what. I don't think the select board can do it on its own. Is that our experience from the past?
That's how the stretch code was, yeah. I'm
Yeah.
sure it's most likely will be that way again.
Yeah, but still, it would help that next thing there, right? I would agree. That in the select board, I mean, and the second bullet pushes a little bit more on open space and the Conservation Commission. That since both of them are under the select board, it gives a little. Dorothea?
Thank you. I'm not done with bullet number 1 yet.
Sure.
I read it as a mandate or a pledge, basically to all town departments, businesses, and homeowners, the critical need to achieve net zero greenhouse gas emissions as soon as is fiscally and technologically possible. Does this imply that, with each kind of like town project, like building new buildings or retrofitting schools, that we should look at the environmental impact here? I mean, talking of fiscally and technologically possible, what does it exactly mean? And if you guys cannot answer this, I guess
No, no,
You're
I
asking
didn't,
us to
I could say
review?
something. I was just trying to hold back.
Yeah. And, you know, this is where, you know, we will need to help them to really identify where it makes sense to spend money, right? Or how to go about it to make it fiscally and technologically possible, right?
Right, sure. I mean, I see it as communicating.
Mhm,
I mean, the question is whether that first one is purely a communicating. If that's the operational verb for the first one.
mhm,
It's not mandating, it's not forcing, it's communicating the need. And so I don't see it as doing something like in capital budgeting. You should factor in a carbon price of $100 a ton when you're comparing options that are more energy efficient or less using of fossil fuels. That would be a different kind of a different mandate. That I would say
Perhaps
for,
another word they might have used is prioritization.
right. But we
Yeah,
could say it's softer,
communications. Yeah.
right? It's a softer thing there, and it comes out of the last. But to me, it's it's part of the third and the last bullet
mhm.
of where you basically then have to come up with plans to achieve these things.
Yeah,
And so that's where there's a little bit more meat in it. And obviously there's nothing there
yeah,
to have researched and developed. So you develop a plan. It's not that you have to meet the plan, you have a plan. And the next thing after this is once you have a plan, then you could start saying, okay, what do you have to mandate to meet it? Which you can't obviously mandate for residents, but you could do it for municipal operations. That's right.
mhm.
So I have no problem with the first one to say to people, right, it's as Brad said, it's sort of it's sort of getting everybody on the same page. I mean, I see a lot of this as maybe the what language to use is, okay, let's get all on the same page that we all agree that we got to do something on this. And this is just a document that helps us all agree to that page.
You know, I quite don't understand how this version of the climate declaration came about between, let's say, November, when they initially worked on something that had had a paragraph in the first version where everything that has been done so far was listed.
Oh, it's up there. You just don't see it on the screen here.
Oh, okay.
I didn't know, this is not the whole document. I was just
Okay.
focusing on these things here. Obviously, we have this is the
Okay.
original article here.
Oh, thank you. Because
This is just me.
mhm.
I was just focusing on those things because these are all general introductory comments. It's
Yeah,
missing,
but they
it's
speak
missing
to
some stuff in the
something.
beginning of that we've done, but it's just a sort of
Yeah.
the preface.
Yeah, Michael, would you mind? Yeah, okay, good. That's the top.
Well, can we just look at the first paragraph, because it says, you know, they were asking me what's currently been done or has been done in the past, and I think Dover students reached out to Gino to understand what has been done. So if you read through the entire paragraph at the very end, calculating townwide greenhouse gas inventory and currently preparing a townwide climate action plan to lower the carbon's footprint. I'm kind of like, I just think this came all about because they were working hastily on this to get all signatures done. Why would you mention this up here and then further down ask for a climate action plan?
Yeah, I brought that up with them last night, I believe. That they basically have already said everything they needed to say in that bullet that says make a inventory and climate action plan if one doesn't exist. Just simply needs to disappear if it can be disappeared.
Yeah. So, but
You're
this,
talking about what, the last bullet here?
consider a greenhouse gas inventory and climate action plan if they're not already in place. Well, the first paragraph says exactly what kind of place they're in. We've got the inventory and the climate action plan is is being developed. So I think that is actually confusing to have it down there.
Well, but one could phrase it, let's put it this way, there's a lot of imperfection, but I think one could easily phrase this as, this is stuff that's underway by us. Doesn't mean that it's all going to be approved and run with by the select board and other groups. So I would easily phrase that as, this is stuff that's going on by the coordinators and the committee, but it hasn't reached a point where that they really want to make sure the select board does do some approval of something. And so right, I see where there's a lot of imperfections in this, but I don't think that's a major flaw in the sense of, right, it's obviously there's some issues of how could be reworded a little more.
Other than zoning bylaw changes, this is one of the longest warrant articles I've ever seen.
Right, it's right. It's unfortunate, as somebody said here. Right, we could have given them a little bit more support and feedback if it was if we had talked to them months ago, because we had talked about. It had come up from time to time here in our meeting doing something like this, because a lot of towns have done it, and my own view, and maybe I don't know if everybody had agreed, but was the sense that this is something that we could put off a year. Let's see how we're doing on the climate action plan and all sorts of other things, and that doing something like this was not holding us up. Not doing this was not holding us up, and therefore maybe we could have a more pointed one in a year or so from now when we have a climate action plan possibly, or we need to find more funding to refine one.
I would agree. If we were in worse shape, if they hadn't funded our two coordinators, if they hadn't funded the website, other things, if we were constantly being turned down, time to launch a missile. Things move slowly.
That's why it's just a matter, I think, to get us all on the same page and to help them get grounded a little better in the reality here is to just sort of, comes back to the Brad thing of here of, we just want to make sure a lot of things are going on in town. People are working on it. It's a lot of work to get this thing going, but this is to help us go get a little bit more on the same page and greater awareness and see if we all agree more about doing this stuff there. And that's what the purpose of this is.
I'm not concerned too much. I mean, this is driven by the students because they are passionate about their future. And I'll be dead before this happens. So, I think it would have been great. Sure. I wish they had talked to us earlier. And maybe we would have done it in a year, but I think we just stand behind these kids and this is it. It's here now. So it doesn't really matter that we might have done it in a year.
Yeah.
And it's almost better that they did it on their own as opposed to if we had done it, if we had fixed it all before they presented it, then it's really not a student project, so I think it's fine. There's a few errors in it, but it's fine as a student presented thing. That's how they learn.
Nice.
Yeah, this has been a great learning experience for them so far, and they're only beginning.
Right. I mean, even if this isn't approved, it's not going to change anything for us.
Right.
We're still going to be going ahead. I'm not sure what reasons people would come up with not to approve this, other than maybe there's some, I don't know, whether it becomes a little more politicized in some ways.
Yeah.
But it's certainly not changing what I think we'd want to do. So it's just a matter of this. What?
How much more text is there
below this?
showing? Is that the end of the document?
Yeah. That's
Okay.
And this is the same document I sent to you all yesterday.
I haven't looked at it in a while.
No, this just I think it I'll come back to it, I would say, even for us and what we write up, it's saying, just helps us all, the whole town and more of the town get on the same page about what we're doing and what we think is doing. And there's even more things here. I'm not quite sure what ensuring the town pursues an equitable and just transition
Mhm.
to zero greenhouse gas future. I mean, I agree there's tremendous environmental justice issues. I'm not quite sure whether I'm missing what are the practical implications of that bullet are. I don't know if other people have other ideas.
It's pretty vague.
Yeah, I think they're just trying to produce an exhaustive list of all the things that you should be doing. And, you know,
Mhm.
you're right, like a lot of these things are kind of redundant with what, you know, initiatives that are already ongoing. But, you know, I don't think it necessarily undercuts them. I think it's just, you know, again, lends credibility to them, or just, and it just lends support to them.
Right.
And it would be great too during the presentation if they were to maybe list communities that have adopted.
They will.
Okay,
Mhm.
great, awesome.
They
That was
will,
one of our
Brett.
suggestions.
We
Yeah.
advised them to, and that is, I think, essential. And the other thing is, I shared with you today Wellesley's climate action resolution that actually was put together by their select board. And in a gist, you should really look into this.
Oh, you sent it today? Oh, I guess I
yeah.
missed it.
Yeah, it is quite something, because first of all, a select board is, and I sent it over to Angela as well. If you guys look under Raina McManus, the thing that I forwarded today.
Yeah, I see it as a 10. I'm trying to pull it up, actually.
Right.
Declaring
So,
the Wellesley report. Trying to see if I could just sort of.
yeah, yeah, and then I looked to the two links, and so the select board itself came up with this climate resolution, which is big, and
Oh, it's big. How
has-
long is it? I guess do you have?
that's October 26, 2020. So in the first year of COVID. And in a gist, this resolution requires the town to proactively consider the impacts of town-funded projects and programs by including in any capital request a rationale for how the project or program may influence greenhouse gas emissions in the town's climate resiliency overall. So I guess that's the sentence that, you know, our students try to bring across with, like, fiscally and technologically feasible, right?
Yeah, they call it.
Or do I
Do you
see
see
this
do you see
wrong?
that thing? Did I screw up the share? Can you still see the students thing on the screen?
We still see the original document.
Okay, fine. I couldn't find the Wellesley one, but right, that's the kind of language that
Yeah.
we would want to put possibly in a plan
Mhm.
and get adopted. And it's the whole thing that
Yeah,
I even suggest, I mean,
because right now with the fiscally and technologically possible, who can explain this? Or can they explain what they mean by that? It's literally looking at, you know, where are the tax dollars best spent and invested, given that we have this climate crisis, right?
yeah, I mean, you could say that fiscally and technologically is, okay, what basically is cost effective? And then the
Right,
definition of
cost-effectiveness.
what's cost effective, and whether you
Mhm.
factor in carbon costs when you define what's cost effective, in the sense that
Yeah.
you have cost in a more broad sense than just dollars and cents. in
It's
the
also
current
about
year.
time scale too.
Right, yeah,
Yes, timescale.
if you look into the
So,
future.
yeah.
So I think, right, clearly there's issues here with a lot of this, and the question is whether we can get feedback about it, but they have what they have, and whether I guess I'll come back to whether we present something about how we support it because it's educational and helps get everybody focused and maybe on the same page, and that it gives a little more support for things that we think are important, because we're doing a climate action plan. We try and identify programs. We haven't reached out, let's say, on carbon sequestration, like the second bullet, even though it's been on my list to see if the Conservation Commission will take as a goal. We're supposed to discuss goals, whether to see if there's ways to factor in climate change into the interests that they call the wetlands protection. And whether even, I guess I have to go think of our tree policy that we're discussing. I forgot to bring up there of that when people are cutting down a lot of trees due to dangerous trees that are endangering or threatening their house, whether we say, okay, you got to go plant new trees. We need the mitigation. We need the mitigation. We could just defend it based on wildlife and other kind of wetland stuff, but we don't have a clause in there that says, yes, we need to maintain the carbon sequestering abilities of these lands. But that's not part of the wetland protection regs. And I'm not sure we can add that without going to town meeting. But that's something that I thought of even at some point down the road with this. We could go to town meeting and amend our wetland protection bylaw to say that carbon sequestration is one of the important interests of wetlands protection. But I think that's a battle to fight a little down the road, or maybe in concert with some of these. If this thing passes, and maybe that would be part of a warrant for next year, the year after, is saying, but based on all this work here, from that, we want to amend our bylaw to include carbon issues and greenhouse gas issues in the wetland protection bylaw. Okay. I guess the question is, do we want to, or maybe since I'm arguing for it, I should draft something that goes a little bit of what, whether somebody wants to write the general support for this, I'd like to, or whether even, or Dorothy, I mean, I think it would be, or how we just coordinate writing, whether we agree that we want to produce a joint document that shows we support this thing because of its education and getting us on the same page, and it supports the following activities are happening, and it helps support these activities so that it's not a burden on the town. I don't know how much to say it's not a burden by these things, but that it gives more support for things that we think as coordinators and as the committee that we think and are doing, and list them against the bullets or just list them separately, independent of that. Do we want to prepare that kind of document in preparation for our own support and voting on this thing?
I think that's a great idea. We should start drafting. I would think what I heard you maybe describing is a letter of support. You know, we could wordsmith it at our next meeting, just have it ready for that first advisory hearing. And
Are you
I think
guys
we're going to
aware of-
present. I would like to present. I mean, Dorothea, you
Okay.
can present separately, but I think we should have a presentation that we go. What do you think, Dorothea? So whether you want to do it jointly or you want to do your own, I don't know how, or to get different ones.
I'm asking in terms of procedures because I'm not clear in my head how this all evolves. Students have to go in front of the select board and then in front of the advisory board,
Yep.
right?
no, first advisory.
First advisory. Do we have a date?
No, I don't think so, but maybe there is.
March 2nd and March 9th are the dates that advisory will be considering warrant articles.
Okay.
But that's not the big public meeting, right?
No, that's not the big public.
That's
meeting
the
on Saturday.
preliminary, yeah.
Yes,
They
but
go
March
to
2nd,
advisory twice.
but before that, that's the, I don't know if they go right. They do this March 2nd or 9th, and then they'll do the big open public meeting. But before then, it's in February, they could still go before the select board.
In
They can go
February.
for other, they can go through other boards to present and get support.
That's true. Yeah,
just like in a sense they're doing with us. But there's nothing stopping them. And obviously, given that they're asking for the select board to do things in this, I would say that it's almost necessary that they go before the select board and get their support. This is, I mean, it could still get, it could get advisory support, but even if the select board disagrees, but I think that it's a much more workable path to getting this through if they go to the select board before they go to advisory.
Mhm.
So I would say that's the path, that we can work with them. We could do something ourselves. We could give them, but they should go to the select board and then advisory. And we could decide how much we write a letter, or we could be there. I mean, as proponents, like a town meeting, proponents get 5 minutes. Other groups, I can't tell whether we're limited to, anybody's limited to 2 minutes. I can't tell if it's a town board group, we can get another 5-minute slot, even a town meeting.
You need to check that. I'm not sure if anybody else gets 5 minutes. You should check.
Yeah, and I don't know
Yeah,
whether.
I think it's just the proponent gets 5 minutes and then anybody supporting gets 2 minutes.
I believe that's correct from our sustainability
Even in 2
coordinator.
minutes, we could have our own slide or two, just which
Yeah,
I can see
yeah,
them on
one
the slide
slide.
that says, here's all the things that they're proposing to be done here, and this is the kind of
Sure.
stuff that we see happening, and this would be tremendous support for backing up this kind of stuff. And
We
so,
could do two things. You could write a letter of support, and then we condense all of this in a slide that is basically a little bit more generalized, for everybody else who is partaking in that. And it would give them, the select board, a little bit more kind of like background why we are, or you guys are supporting this, including me and Gino.
yeah, no, the question is whether, I mean, we could group together or we could break it up in some ways as to what we're doing versus what you're doing or what Gino's doing on municipal operations, or what you're doing with residents, and what we are doing, working with both of you, as well as our own sort of efforts. I don't know, I'm raising the question of how much do we want to do it as one big joint statement, or what you get each of us, I could present, you could present, Gino could present, others could present. I'm just trying to.
So we have 2 minutes, right? Do I get this right? I mean, for basically, what I'm saying is if we have a letter before we actually present the slide, select board members will understand a little bit better why this is good.
We got the 2-minute thing that we're talking about is at the formal town meeting, and also at advisory's formal hearing. In probably, I don't know when it is, April, May, April, I guess, the big public hearing. But before then, in terms of meeting with the select board or the initial advisory, I don't think there are specific time limits or limits of people. So we can each speak. I mean, a number of us can speak if we want, or whether we have one consolidated thing. So how do we?
One suggestion, maybe, why don't we do one consolidated letter, because it kind of shows a unified effort. But then that doesn't mean we can't still individually speak.
Sure.
Just a thought.
Okay, I guess in the midst of things here, if I want to, other people here are probably better wordsmiths, but whether or I could even talk with Dorothy or anybody, or whether I just take a cut at a rough letter with an outline, whether it's a mixture of an outline and text that I just send out, and we could start thinking about it. Because I'd like to have something sooner than later for the students to understand where we are and how we see this fitting in, so they can reflect that. Because And we could see how much we're defining our own sort of thing there so that they can do their thing and we do our own thing.
And once we do this kind of supportive letter, do we have a word limitation? What I'm saying is like, how do we want, or how do we agree as a group how this document should look like? Is it going to be like programmatic support? Or will it be a 5-page document?
If I could speak to that, Dorothy, I think what we're talking about is just a simple page, one or less, certainly less than, a couple paragraphs to support the warrant article for its passage. And have that to share with advisory and select.
I guess, well, you'd see if depending on who writes a draft, I would say that it starts out with that. But I think it has to tie in. Part of why I have this on the screen here is that I think we need to go beyond that to talk about how it is, what we're doing as a group against these points, so that people have a sense that this is what to see. That I would write something that's in some ways matches these bullets about that. It has to be terse. It could have more supporting information, but obviously, right, you want to get enough in the first page so that for the people who aren't going to read more than one page.
If it needs to be 2 pages, fine, but if you can get it down to 1, more people will read it.
Fine.
And you can get other boards to mimic our
Right.
board and then similar.
Well, we'll see. I guess I'm arguing for this thing here. I guess I'll do something that whether people cut it up or not, or I want to do it as something else separately, who cares? We just have to come up with something that we do as a group, and maybe talking about it more at the moment isn't worth it versus having a draft that even if I use it as a straw man to try to mock up something rough, that I throw at all of you, and maybe that'll be the more fruitful way of having the next discussion rather than talk about it more now. I'm ready to stop talking about this, and I'll try to put some bullets or words to a page for people to start reacting to, or you could write, you could come up with your own bullets in the meanwhile, but I'll try to do something sooner than later so that it's a little of a lightning rod to get people's reactions and fill in other things that are maybe better wordsmithers than I.
I agree that it is time to move on.
What?
I said, I agree. It's time to move on. I don't think we can beat this horse anymore and still have it be alive.
Okay. In terms of, let's see, we've done that. We've got the agenda. In terms of activities, maybe whether Dorothea, Gino, or Brad want to talk about a few ongoing activities. I think since we have that on our agenda, let me stop sharing here.
Oops.
Let's see, we got that there. We've done did Gino or Dorothea, do you have any particular things you want to bring up with us?
I have, well, Dorothea has her hand up.
Yeah.
Defer to her.
I just wanted to, last question I had about our work with the students. When they're going to present second time with a polished kind of presentation, does it make sense to invite our environmentally inclined select board members? I'm thinking about Marianne and Jeff, possibly Eric, so that they can see what's in the workings, or does it not make sense to bring them to this conversation? Because
I would ask the students.
That's the choir, right?
Say it again?
Yeah, that's the choir. They're already the initiates, as I think, someone's
Yeah,
mentioned
but,
in a
But
previous
they,
one.
I think it would be good feedback. But I would
Mhm.
say that I would ask the students if they would like that. And then we
Yeah.
can see whether we can get a non-quorum number. Otherwise, right, it depends whether they feel prepared for that and whether we then just approach. How do we decide what's fair to approach? I don't know whether it gets a little, how we decide of the 5 members, who to invite to this thing gets a little tricky. Since if we know them all, they're all responsible about, I think they're all interested in this topic. And so it gets a little, I'm not sure I would figure out how to, after I said ask the students, I'm not sure how we would decide to do this unless we want to make it into a big formal joint meeting and invite all of them. And then
Yeah.
it gets more complicated.
And then it just becomes the kids' presentation to the select board. So,
Yeah.
yeah, I think it's pretty spotty to try and, as Brad said, bring the already believers in and leave the others out. I think that might be problematic.
Mhm.
And even in your comment, just since it's a formal meeting, that we don't know who the believer or the choir is per se. And
Sure.
even to you, for Dorothea, that it's not the second presentation, it's really the first presentation to the committee.
Correct.
So just to be clear about how we talk about things.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, going back to, it's getting late, Dorothea or Gino, what you want to say, and then Brad can go.
I just wanted to report that the charging station is now charging. And I was worried it was effective a week ago today. And the first 3 or 4 days, I think by the end of the week, nobody had charged anything. But now people are back
Okay.
charging. So
Oh, I'm happy.
we've generated about $15 in income so far.
Did
Okay.
anybody stay very long?
Yes, as a matter of fact, yesterday, I'm sure it's the same Mustang that was there all day long a couple weeks ago, was there all day long. And I think they accounted for most of that 15. The other was Frank, I know, because he told me that he had hooked in and it was working.
Oh, that's good.
Mustang
So-
got really high reviews on Consumer Reports for an EV.
Oh, really? Oh, wow. That's okay, but it used up one slot. There was still a second slot available. There were never 2 cars there.
Correct, that's right.
Okay, so at this point, I guess we don't have an issue about hourly fee or some limit yet, but we'll have to monitor that issue and see how it goes. Okay. Any other things that you, Dorothea, want to bring up with us before we move on to some?
It's just an update. We're still working on the MOU with All in Energy and finalizing on that. And once that is done, I foresee sending this out to the select board for, asking them whether we have to vote on this or they have to vote on this, or if we can proceed and use it and as a document from the Energy Committee, right?
Yeah, right. Well, whether they want to approve it or we could do it. Okay,
Yeah.
since there's no cost complications.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll let you take that forward there. Brad, I think you want to talk about some stuff you're doing?
Oh, yeah. So I've been contacted by 3 different residents over the last, I'd say, month, just asking for advice on mostly heat pumps, but one was a solar panel related contact that then turned into a heat pump conversation. And so I've been thinking of maybe I got to draft some sort of stock document that I share. And I would would pass it around to the committee for their edits. Just kind of some, fact sheets on like, you're considering getting an installation, things to consider, in terms of contractor selection or, and then system design and, then rebates and all that. I don't know, because I find that I'm trying to, look back over my past emails to regurgitate this information for some of these people. And I'm glad that they are reaching out. And I think, Dorothea, you had passed on at least one of these contacts to me. One of them was Griselle, actually.
Yes.
And so I've looped Dorothea in as a second viewpoint on these things. And so I'm happy that, there's residents considering these technologies. I feel like it's probably good to have a nice, informative, succinct, well-reviewed list of considerations and maybe, linking out to additional resources. I mean, I know we have the website. I personally would feel that there's additional information that needs to be shared with these residents on top of what the website provides. So it's just a thought that I had, and I know Andy actually had some comments regarding how to approach heat pump installation too, that I want to hear. And there's no one size fits all. Like it's complicated, and solutions that work in some contexts don't work in others, and so it all depends. But that's something that I've been kind of kicking around my mind. And then Michael, actually, I should probably sign up as an associate for the Heat Smart Alliance, but I'm wondering if I can grab, if we can. I think they have a list of like contractors, right? And for heat pump installation, because I had mentioned that, I think, to Griselle.
I'm not sure that they have. You could talk to them. What I would suggest is you could find out, but talk to them. They have between, I think, if you're going to write something, prepare it. The Heat Smart Alliance people already have something, as well as Mass Energize people. I guess I would just start. I can't tell if Mass Energize has some handouts as well, but I would just start with the Heat Smart Alliance, because I think they already have some of this kind of stuff done, because they've run workshops and things like that, and so they have handout materials that have been done. So maybe you'd find whatever is well polished and as starting points there, and it needs to be also be updated because the incentives are going up this year for heat pumps. But I would start. I can't imagine that you need to start from scratch.
Yeah,
I'm
I can't
shocked
imagine either.
that there isn't. I'm almost positive they already have a bunch of this stuff, because I've seen some materials even for announcing workshops a while ago. So I think it's easy to become an associate there, and then you can get ready access to all of that kind of material, as well as talk to people about it, as well as, and there might be stuff to put down to talk to Abode Energy, ABODE, who's working with Concord, and they have a contract with them because of the municipal thing there, where they review a lot of stuff there. And I don't know how much they'll share.
Yeah.
But since they're, and I'll also bring up that one of Andy's concerns, that is this whole issue of how much you work with contractors. And whether we get some contractors that are somewhat vetted through this. You can talk with Dorothea where we are on vetting some people on heat pumps through that multi-town thing.
They just got back to me today, and they were saying that they're in the process of vetting a couple of vendors, and they will get back us to the group fairly soon. So
there's going to be sources of that. And forgot the other thing I was going to say, but
how do we like vet them? Like, what are the criteria that they're using?
Well, I'm going to say it's a little late, but you can get to that document. I'm going to cut you off and say, unless it's short, but there was an RFP document done. And I don't know what Ashland did with that whole thing with Framingham. But I don't know if you could say it succinctly versus say that you should share the documents that they used.
Mhm.
For that.
Usually, just to give you a gist, and know we are in time constraint, but what in the previous solar and clean heat campaign that Natick and Framingham and I think Ashland and Holliston did, they were looking like at the vendors, they had to qualify in particular categories. For example, they had to have at least one solar clean heat campaign before and vetted by the Mass CAC. And then other things are coming in like the Better Business Bureau, reviews, that kind of thing.
They emphasize
And
customer
competitive
satisfaction.
pricing at some point too, yeah.
I do like involving a board, just because it seems like, looking at what they do, they provide education for a lot of contractors, and they seem to be very design oriented. I know I'd mentioned revision in the past, but I don't believe they actually do any sort of home performance assessments. I think they're purely install.
Oh, they do.
Oh, they do?
Yeah, that's a whole other topic, but right. I mean, but yes, they do some stuff there. I mean, the issue that I was going to, but the last thing I was going to bring up is one of Andy's issues, which we've talked about before, of to what extent do you go to a contractor to figure out your heat pump needs versus whether you also have a picture, whether there's this whole mode of getting a consulting engineer kind of person who does whole house work there, and it's not just limited to heat pumps like a contractor which might have their own limitations as to what technologies they're familiar with or what manufacturers they're familiar with and a particular equipment.
Yeah.
And Andy's view is that he feels that that's possibly an extra expense that's not needed given his own experience. Versus sometimes I wonder whether you're just having somebody, if it could be a can, if some of these companies are doing these more simplified but comprehensive looks at a house in terms of their heat load analysis and things like that to make, and what their existing systems and whether they can make some recommendations and specs for a contractor to then follow. And then there's the people worry about issues of, well, what happens if the specs weren't right? Who's to blame, the contractor or the engineer? Who's going to be the one who follows up to make sure the performance is right? So you get that divided kind of issue. I mean, I go back and forth, but that's what we've talked about before. And Andy's concern is about that versus a contractor who's on the, basically has to go. I mean, but I'm not even sure to what extent they're on the ropes for how does the whole thing work out? Because there are a lot of sizing and performance issues. But so that's what makes it a little more complicated as to what mode to follow. And to which I say, it's a matter of suggesting that there are these different modes and people have to figure out for themselves to some extent. And whether there are companies that, I mean, I know there's some, even I think in downtown Sherborn, there's some group that I looked at years ago when I needed I guess, what was that group? When we had to do something for the fire station, I think with Green Communities, we once needed a heat loss or some calculation for the insulation benefits at the fire station. And I can't tell if there's a company right downtown behind the post office in those little buildings up Powerhouse that does some sort of energy analysis. But there are these companies that might be specializing it, that maybe would come up with sort of low cost canned, not canned in a bad way, but something that's maybe lower cost so that people could afford it and get a better overall perspective about the house and net zero goals even or something. So that's a whole other topic, but yeah, so those, I think we have to have something that sort of explores that there are these options. The notes. It's 5:05. And we all have to eat dinner so we can go to Tom Trainer's and the groundwater protection committees
Yes,
meeting on
please.
drinking water wells that I have to,
The last time I checked, we have 123 people registered.
good.
Thank you, Dorothea. Others?
Yeah, I'm curious if our basically direct sign up link at the newsletter into the school has had success. I don't know if we can ask people how they found out about the webinar. That would be interesting to hear.
You know, they were thinking of doing a follow-up email. That's an excellent suggestion. I'm
Mhm.
gonna see if they can add that to a survey
Yeah.
question.
Yeah, no, I agree. That would be great to learn what
Just to
mechanisms
hear
worked.
if, parents at the high school saw this and signed up for it.
We
Mm,
know the Pine Hill, that's Steph Harrison on our committee
Mhm.
did. We know that got a lot of names and a lot of new names, residents that said, oh my gosh, we
Mhm.
moved here 5 years ago. We've had questions since day
Yeah.
one. This is good.
Please, yes, if you can, share the registrant list with me and I will put people on my newsletter distribution list. We
Okay,
have 398 people now and we have still room to add I think 102 to make it, to complete the subscription, right? The maximum.
Okay, great. Well, we'll look forward to that tonight.
Mhm.
Next meeting timing, I guess, unless anybody has anything urgent to talk about, even at this late time.
well, we already have February 7th, right?
Right, I guess that one we could just, whether we just keep that meeting as our next at 5, and then we'll see how it goes.
Or do you want to also plan a second?
That's 2 weeks. That's 2 weeks from now. Yeah, it's 2 weeks. Why don't we just, okay, let's just make it February 7th at 5 o'clock, and we'll see what it works. Even, I guess, I guess there was a mix of who wanted earlier versus later. So I guess we'll keep it at 5 and we'll just run it a little after the kids for anything else that we have to deal with that's non-warrant. That's non-warrant or related. Okay. So let's do the 5 o'clock on the 7th and we'll work from there.
Right.
Okay,
Okay.
so if this is our official ESC meeting, then, other people can join in, right? So
Of
we could
course.
advertise this, or I could say at the next ESC meeting, students are presenting. Are you interested in hearing that? Is that advisable? Or shall we do that? Or
It's up to them. Part of it comes back to how
Uh-huh.
much they feel they want to deal with. I mean, they signed on to get feedback from the committee and to talk to us
Mhm.
about that. It depends on how much they want to sign up for more than that. And versus they'd rather get feedback and keep working on their presentation before they
Mhm.
deal with a larger audience like the select board and get it more promoted there.
Yeah, okay.
So that's my only reaction to that. Okay, anybody else have anything else?
Nope.
Then I move to adjourn at 5:09.
Second.
Any discussion? Michael, aye. Oh, Brad,
Aye.
Tom,
I.
Fred, Brad. Fred.
You're muted, Fred Brad.
You're muted.
You're muted.
Brad,
I
Fred,
was just making note that I didn't fall for it this time.
I waited. I waited to make sure.
I heard that.
I should play around with a formal vote. Who knows whether I messed up our formal meeting. Oh,
So that was just discussion. That's all.
yeah, right. Okay, 4-0, we have adjourned.
All right, folks, we'll see you later.
Okay, see you in the
Have a
massive
good
group
one.
later. Okay.